was riding when I was 3 years old, and then started competing in rodeo when I was 7. It all started with my mom when I was little. She would take my hand and she would trace the barrel pattern on my hand just over and over and over. I wanted to be able to saddle my pony by myself. I wanted to be able to get on my pony by myself. I wanted to be able to do everything.
She's a spitfire with blonde hair. She doesn't take no for answers.
I've won 7 saddles. I've won over 70 buckles. The biggest moment for me was in 2009. I had qualified for the high school national finals, and they only take the top 4 in every event from every state there. And then the week after, I had a finals rodeo in Colorado, the National Little Britches finals. I came home with the finals and world all-around titles.
But not long after, the national champion nearly lost her life.
It was January of 2010. I was up in Logan for an FFA meeting. I was serving as state FFA president, and I'd left that morning at about 4:30 to start my drive to Denver, Colorado. I was going through Rollins. I'd stopped and at a gas station. When I got back in my truck, I looked down to check my map. When I looked up, I had faded over a lane and was heading towards a mile marker on the side of the road. So I grabbed my wheel to correct my truck, and it just sent me sliding across the road. There was a moment where I thought, okay, I've got this, I'm gonna be all right. And the back right tire on my truck caught the dirt on the side of the freeway, pulled me completely sideways, and my truck picked up off the ground to start rolling. And I mean, at that point, I'm thinking, what do you do? What am I gonna do? I'm about to die in my truck right here, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about that.
Without her seatbelt on, Amberly was thrown through the windshield, across the freeway, and broke through a fence post.
I opened up my eyes, and I'm sitting on the side of this freeway, and I could see, just everything from my truck scattered for yards. It was like looking at the pieces of my life, but I couldn't even move to go pick them up. I realized I was thinking okay, so I looked at my fingers and I moved them, and next I looked down to my toes and tried to move them, and nothing happened. I'm sitting on the side of the freeway, and I'm thinking, I can't feel my legs. It was, how am I gonna ride?
I picked up my phone, and there was text messages on there and voicemails, and it was from her. It said, I've been in a car accident, can't feel my legs, going into surgery, please pray for me. And I remember exactly where I was standing in my house, standing right by the fireplace, and I remember I just dropped to the floor, just crying.
5 hours of surgery left Amberly with several screws and rods in her back.
At 18 years old, here I am laying on this table thinking, there's no way. There's no way that doctor just told me that my life is over, that what am I gonna do for the rest of my life?
I remember the first time I walked in her room, she was laying down. Of course, all this emotion comes, but you try not to cry in front of them. She is probably one of the happiest people there. She'll tell you that when people come see her, she'd be the one to comfort them, not the other way around. It's the kind of person she is.
Although not allowed in the hospital, her four-legged friends were big in her recovery.
And so I kept telling them, if you let me bring my saddle into this hospital, my balance is better on that saddle than it is anywhere else. And they kept thinking I was crazy. They kept being like, no, we're not gonna bring your saddle into the hospital. And I said, no, let me bring my saddle in, let me show you this is where my balance is the best. So finally I convinced them, and they did. They let me bring a saddle into the hospital. My mom on my hospital bed one day, and I said, promise me that I'll get back on. And she said, Amberly, I don't care if we have to strap you to that saddle, you will ride again. So my brothers went and cut a seatbelt out of a junkyard car. We took it into the saddle maker that's by us, and we said, okay, this is where we need this seatbelt. It wasn't until 4 months after my accident for the very first time that I got back on my horse. That's supposed to be the happiest moment of my life probably, and it was one of the hardest. Because I had just built it up in my mind that if I get back on my horse, everything is gonna be okay. It's still possible for me to be able to do that, and that's all I had to hang on to. That's all I had to know, is that as long as it was possible, I was gonna be able to do it.
There are little miracles every day I get to see, and not a lot of people get to do that. It's for how many doctors and specialists that have told her no, to prove them wrong. That says a lot about her character.
Character that has led Amberly to attend rodeos all by herself.
I kept telling my parents I want hand controls in the truck. I want it in our F-350 so that I can drive the trailer. The first day that I was able to get in that truck and drive away with this trailer behind me, one of the best moments of my entire life. Reach for this ladder, reach for my saddle horn up here. My horse is a little far away. And once I have a hold of both of those, oh, he's moving. Then I can pull myself to the height that I need to get myself up here.
After 5 years of being around her, every time I see her do something, even if I've seen her do it 1,000 times, I just am like, I don't even know what to think. I go speechless. And every time for like about 2 years, every time I'd watch her run, I'd just start crying.
My horses have played one of the biggest roles in my recovery, in my attitude, in anything, because really, I get to have the freedom when I'm on my horses. You know, when I get on the back of one of my horses, I get to leave my wheelchair at my trailer and my horse becomes my legs. I mean, I get to go out there and compete like everybody else there. And so those moments of freedom are really what keep me going. You know, they're the reasons that I can get up every morning and have the attitude that I have, even though I'm sitting in a wheelchair.
Those moments of freedom have helped Amberly to compete professionally, which she hopes will one day lead to her ultimate goal.
Eventually, one day, making the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. I mean, that is every cowgirl's dream, is to go down there and do that. Still my dream. Still what I plan on doing.